Warriors fans, before I tell you what happened, I need you to understand exactly how dire this roster's specific physical profile has become, because that context is the entire reason this move makes sense. Steph Curry is 38, Draymond Green is 36, Jimmy Butler, working back from injury concerns of his own, is not the vertical rim-attacking athlete he was in his prime. This is undeniably one of the least explosive, least downhill driving rosters Golden State has fielded in over a decade. And at 1:51 this afternoon, on a live First Take Now cut-in, Shams Charania delivered news that has this fan base doing a genuine double take, because it addresses exactly that specific glaring weakness in the most dramatic way imaginable. Zion Williamson is walking through the door, traded from the New Orleans Pelicans to the Golden State Warriors. Before you scroll off, I'm telling you right now, by the end of this video, I'm going to tell you the specific reasoning Shams gave for why Mike Dunleavy Jr. moved on this now, tied directly to a private evaluation of Golden State's own aging roster that reportedly happened just days ago. I'm also going to tell you what Draymond Green posted from his personal account 23 minutes later, a message that reveals exactly how much this specific physical profile has been discussed inside that locker room. Stay with me, do not click off. Here's how it went down. Molly Kareem is running First Take Now, discussing Summer League takeaways, when the control room clearly interrupts with real urgency. She stops. "We're going to Shams right now, this is breaking," and they cut. Shams delivers, and this is the direct transcript. I want to explain the specific internal reasoning that drove this, because it's tied to something that happened just days ago, not weeks. My understanding is that following the finalization of Golden State's roster this summer, the Draymond re-signing, the earlier additions, Steve Kerr's coaching staff conducted an internal physical and athletic profile assessment of the full roster, specifically flagging a significant lack of downhill rim pressure players as the single greatest structural risk heading into a playoff run against younger, more athletic Western Conference teams. That assessment, according to sources, directly triggered Mike Dunleavy Jr.'s call to New Orleans within 48 hours. Once Dumars' front office confirmed their own internal shift away from building around the Williamson-Queen pairing, Golden State moved immediately with a specific offer built around exactly the type of draft compensation New Orleans needed. This deal is agreed to. It directly reflects Golden State's own internal admission that their roster, as currently constructed, lacked the physical dimension a healthy Williamson provides. Read that back. Golden State's own internal admission that their roster lacked the physical dimension. That is Shams reporting something rarely made public, a front office's own internal self-assessment of a structural weakness, and the specific rapid action that assessment triggered. And 23 minutes later, and as I promised, Draymond Green posted from his personal account, and this one is remarkably candid given the source. "Been saying it in our own film sessions for 2 years. We need somebody who can just go get a bucket at the rim without needing a set play. Now we got him. This locker room already knows exactly what this means." Read that back. "Been saying it in our own film sessions for 2 years. That is Draymond confirming in his own words that this specific structural concern, a lack of rim pressure, has been an internal recurring topic inside the team's own film study for a significant length of time, corroborating precisely the internal assessment Shams described in his original report. Now, the whiplash, because I know exactly what you're thinking. Golden State just missed on LeBron. They're an aging jump shooting team built around Steph Curry's gravity. Zion Williamson, a bruising physical interior force, seems like the exact opposite archetype of what this roster's identity has always been. How does this actually fit? And here's the honest answer, and it requires separating roster identity from roster need. Golden State's shooting-based, perimeter-oriented identity has been enormously successful for over a decade, but it has a specific, well-documented vulnerability. When the jump shots aren't falling, this team has historically had almost no alternative way to generate offense. No plan B built on physical dominance rather than shooting rhythm. Zion provides exactly that alternative. Not a replacement for the shooting identity, but a genuine complement to it. A player who can generate offense purely through downhill physicality on nights when the threes simply aren't going in. Stay with me. Because once you understand exactly how this specific pairing addresses Golden State's most persistent playoff vulnerability, this stops looking like a mismatched fit and starts looking like exactly the kind of stylistic insurance policy a championship hunting front office should be building. 3 reasons Shams was this confident. Reason 3 is where the reveal lands. Reason number 1, watch the tape from Golden State's recent playoff eliminations honestly. In multiple series, when the 3-point shot went cold for even a single quarter, this team has historically had no reliable alternative offensive plan. No player who could simply put his head down and generate a bucket through pure physical force. Zion Williamson is, at his healthy best, one of the single most physically dominant interior scorers in the entire NBA. A player whose game does not depend on rhythm shooting at all. Adding that specific non-shooting dependent scoring option gives Steve Kerr an entirely different offensive gear to turn to in exactly the moments this roster has historically struggled most. Reason number 2, and this is the tactical detail specific to why this pairing genuinely benefits Steph Curry directly. Zion's gravity as a roll man and rim runner, when healthy, is significant enough to draw legitimate defensive attention away from the perimeter, creating exactly the kind of driving lanes and open catch-and-shoot windows that Curry's game thrives on. This is not 2 players competing for the same space. This is a genuine 2-way symbiosis, where Zion's interior gravity creates more room for Curry's shooting, and Curry's shooting creates more space for Zion to operate downhill without a packed paint waiting for him. And before I get to reason 3, because reason 3 is the specific internal assessment Shams described, talk to me in the comments. Warriors fans, real question, does adding a physically dominant, injury-prone big man feel like the right kind of complement to this roster's identity, or does it feel like an awkward stylistic mismatch bolted onto an aging, perimeter-based core? I think Dub Nation is going to have a genuinely interesting debate about this, and I want to read it. Go. Reason number 3, the assessment. Ready? Steve Kerr's coaching staff conducted an internal physical and athletic profile assessment. Specifically flagging a significant lack of downhill rim pressure players. Read that back. That is an extraordinarily specific internal coaching staff generated evaluation being reported almost verbatim. Not a vague sense that the team needed more athleticism, but a formal, structured assessment identifying a precise structural gap. When an insider reports the existence and specific conclusion of an internal coaching evaluation, and that conclusion is then independently corroborated by a veteran player publicly confirming the exact same concern had been discussed in film sessions for 2 years, you have 2 entirely separate sources, one institutional, one personal, arriving at the identical conclusion. That convergence is precisely the kind of cross-verification that separates a credible, sourced report from speculation. Now, the skeptic, Stephen A. Smith, was blunt. You're telling me the Warriors, the most perimeter-oriented, jump-shooting, gravity-based offense in modern NBA history, are now building around Zion Williamson, a bruising interior force who has never developed a reliable jump shot in his entire career, has a well-documented history of missing significant time, and doesn't fit any prior version of what has made this team successful. This isn't complimentary, this is contradictory. And listen, Stephen A. His stylistic concern deserves genuine consideration. Fundamentally shifting a roster's identity late in a championship window carries real integration risk, and there's no guarantee a physically dominant non-shooter meshes smoothly with a system built entirely around spacing and ball movement. But here's the counter, and it's specifically about why complementary skills matter more than stylistic similarity. The single greatest predictor of offensive success in the modern NBA is not stylistic consistency, it's whether your best players' specific skills create advantages for each other rather than compete for the same space. Zion's gravity pulls defenders into the paint, Curry's gravity pulls defenders to the perimeter. Those are not contradictory forces. They are complementary ones, and when they work together, as Draymond's own comments suggest the coaching staff has modeled extensively, they create exactly the kind of 2-pronged offensive pressure that is genuinely difficult for any single defensive scheme to fully contain. Here's the part of this story with real texture to it. Zion Williamson has spent his entire 7-year career being described repeatedly as one of the single most physically gifted players in the history of the sport, and also repeatedly as a player whose career has never fully matched that physical ceiling due to persistent injury. Now, at 26 years old, walking into a genuinely stable, veteran-led, championship-caliber locker room with Steph Curry and Draymond Green as his new teammates and mentors, he gets a completely different environment than the rebuilding, coaching carousel chaos he experienced for years in New Orleans. If there was ever a moment and a setting for the what if he stayed healthy version of Zion Williamson to finally emerge, this specific pairing, veteran stability meeting generational physical talent, is about as good a laboratory as the league can offer, but I owe you the honest risk. Golden State is taking on real documented injury risk at a stage of their championship window where they genuinely cannot afford significant missed time from a key piece. And if Zion's health pattern from earlier in his career resurfaces, rather than the improved availability of his most recent season, this specific bet could genuinely backfire at the worst possible moment. So let me bring it home. Zion Williamson to the Warriors matters because he provides the exact downhill rim pressure dimension this roster's own coaching staff formally identified as its biggest structural weakness, because his interior gravity and Curry's perimeter gravity create genuine, complementary offensive pressure rather than stylistic contradiction, and because Shams' report of a specific internal athletic assessment, independently corroborated by Draymond's own public comments about years of internal film session discussion, is exactly the kind of cross-verified detail that confirms real sourcing. Now here's what I'm watching next, and this is the next video, so hit subscribe. If Zion lands in the Bay, the very next question is exactly how Steve Kerr structures the front court rotation around him and Draymond, and what specific draft compensation Golden State had to give up to complete the deal. I've got a read on it that will surprise you. For now, comments, likes, subscribe, Dub Nation. The film sessions finally got their answer. Wild Summer.